Since its establishment in 1984, the Fiji Women's Crisis Centre has left its mark by pushing the issue of women's human rights and gender-based violence into the forefront of the media, government's agenda, and the public eye.
That has been a tradition with us. We challenge, we protest and so on over the years. That is how we have got so many things.
I think over the years people have come to recognize the work of the centre and also recognize the Crisis Centre as a key agency in terms of the work on violence against women.
After pleading guilty to a sexual assault charge,
found guilty of raping a 3-year-old girl.
But despite its many years of work to advocate for the elimination of violence against women, the violence seems to continue to increase in Fiji.
Who sexually assaulted a teenage girl last year.
and one count of rape of a 9-year-old relative.
We have to continue working towards eliminating violence against women. I don't believe we're going to have a world where there will be we will have no violence against women, the types of violence that we are seeing and experiencing. I don't believe that will happen, but that is the dream that we will all work towards.
After working for 20 years in cramped ancient offices, the Fiji Women's Crisis Centre moved into their new facilities in 2006.
Good afternoon, Fiji Women's Crisis Centre.
Providing more space and more modern resources, the new centre has enabled the Crisis Centre to better provide for its clients and to increase the services it offers to Fiji and the Pacific region. From counselling to advocacy work to research, the Crisis Centre is engaged at many levels of Fiji society to address the critical issue of gender-based violence. Apart from its main centre, the Fiji Women's Crisis Centre currently has 3 other centres in towns and cities throughout Fiji: Lambasa, Nadi, and Bar. One of the Crisis Centre's first roles is still one of its most essential ones: counselling the victims of violence. Since its early days, Crisis Centre counsellors have seen a progression of violent crimes that increase every year.
Mostly it's like the physical violence and the sexual violence that women go through, and along with that, this emotional violence. And when I'm saying abuse, most people might think that it's only the physical abuse if they see injuries. But what we see here at the Crisis Centre is the extent of injuries that no one would ever think of what this woman is going through.
The centre's counsellors are highly trained and motivated professionals. Many have been with the organisation for more than 10 years, providing counselling with both experience and empathy.
While we are in counselling, we explore options with her, what she wants to do. We don't give advice. And then she tells us what is she looking for, what are her plans, what are her goals. So we help her go along with that. If it's not safe, we don't go to the home, but we try to find out where she is. If she comes out to a safe place, we get her from there, or if she goes to the police station, we are at the police station, or to the hospital, we go there.
Providing safe refuge for women who want to leave a violent situation is a continuing challenge for the Crisis Centre.
Often, when they decide to leave a relationship, there is nowhere to go. And we really don't have shelters that cater, sensitively. We need shelters that are feminist, that address the issue of women's human rights, that believe that women have a right to make choices about their lives and have a right to leave violent relationships.
The Crisis Centre also counsels children, both male and female. In Fiji, children as young as 2 and 3 years old are more often becoming survivors of sexual violence. The responsibility for counselling these young survivors falls to the Crisis Centre's counsellors.
When we have children coming in, very young children, and they're sexually abused by the people they know, the loved ones at home, that really touches our heart. And they clearly, openly tell us how they have been sexually abused by their father, or grandfather, or stepfathers. That is quite emotional also for the counsellors. And we sometimes strive to think that, if it was my child, we feel that.
To change public attitudes and behaviour towards violence against women, the staff of the Crisis Centre use advocacy as a major tool.
What do we want to? Now!
From their annual marches to mark the 16 days of activism against violence against women, to special events in city centres to raise awareness on women's human rights, to the production of print materials, T-shirts, TV ads, web-based information and other materials, to workshops and seminars for special groups,
Responses. How do police respond to all these reported crimes?
the Crisis Centre continually strives to keep the issue of gender-based violence in the public's mind.
When the man starts defining, I'm the man, I'm the one who will make the decision, that man most potentially either is violent or is potentially violent.
By raising public awareness and slowly changing attitudes towards this issue, the Centre hopes to trigger a decline in the number of cases of gender-based violence in the community.
We have a lot of knowledge to give to people, and every individual can take up the issue of preventing violence against women, and that's what we would like the people of Fiji to do.
Over the last few years, the Women's Crisis Centre has begun working with a unique new partner: men. The Centre hopes to develop the men themselves to become advocates against gender-based violence.
We believe that we have to actually look at the people who are creating the problem, and these are the men. So it's really important in this work to target men, because we're talking about men's violence against women here.
So if you're thinking about challenging these excuses...
Beginning in 2002, the Crisis Centre began working with male leaders from Fiji and the Pacific Island region to sensitise them not only to issues of gender-based violence, but also to the larger issue of women's human rights.
The whole issue of violence arises because of society's attitude towards women, and we live in a patriarchal society. It's important that we target the men and change their mindsets so that they can influence other men, change their behavior, thinking. All those things have to go together.
The men who were chosen to participate were in positions of leadership and who held jobs of influence.
There is no biblical support to say that men were given the authority over women.
These were the men that other men would look up to, with the hope that these male leaders would become positive role models for other men.
We believe that if male leaders, men who take on a leading role in our communities, if we can change them, then they can change other men. We can't just have a attitude change, but not the behavior, or a behavior change and not. All these things have to go together. Looking at women as equals, respecting them as human beings, respecting the work that women do, and ensuring that women's human rights that women enjoy their full human rights also.
Fiji's rural areas continue to provide a challenge for the Crisis Centre's efforts to protect and inform Fiji women of their right to be free from violence. With 50% of Fiji's population living in the rural areas, these remote communities pose unique difficulties for the Crisis Centre. Transport to rural communities is expensive and difficult, and yet the women in these communities request for the Crisis Centre's assistance more and more regularly.
The demand is coming from the rural areas. Once one or two women have come to the urban areas and attended a training, they go back and they want us to go down there.
Every year, the Crisis Centre, through its 4 offices, conducts dozens of workshops in rural communities throughout Fiji.
The Fiji Women's Crisis Centre
Women in rural areas face similar difficulties with traditional male attitudes and the perception of violence as an acceptable custom. But these rural women are more isolated and lack the basic information that is easier for urban women to access.
I think in terms of dealing with attitudes and the issues, they're very similar. But in terms of logistics, for example, if we have to plan around cyclone season, around flooding, and so all the logistical stuff is different. The bulk of the community education that we do is out in the rural areas. Our branches can, in terms of their community education activities, they can capture an audience of between 3,000 to 4,000 people in a year, and that's the kind of outreach that they have.
So what we're trying to do there is encourage the community to take responsibility and work in partnership with various people, rather than women being afraid of going to the police because the husband will be told, and so on and so forth. So it's really important for us to create that kind of a community responsibility and community spirit in responding to this kind of issues.
Family life education, which has a strong component on gender education.
A lot of the methodology and approaches of the study was Tonganized, the cultural context type of comment, which I see as a real barrier.
Who do you target? What do you want to achieve? So that all goes back to your planning stages.
Culture of denial, because everything family is private.
Almost since its inception, the Crisis Centre has lent a helping hand to women's centres in other Pacific Island countries. Because they were one of the first, the Fiji Women's Crisis Centre has been sought out by other island countries as both a mentor and a source of information.
In 1992, we had the first Violence Against Women meeting. So from there, the Pacific Women's Network Against Violence Against Women was set up. And the Crisis Centre was going to play an advisory role. It was going to become a clearinghouse for information on women and women's rights issues and violence against women.
That first regional meeting marked the beginning of regular regional consultations between Pacific women's organizations that continues to this day.
Over the years, we've started to develop what we call a whole range of multiple and reinforcing strategies in terms of addressing violence against women.
The Fiji Women's Crisis Centre has taken a leading role in providing coordination and training for other Pacific Island women's organizations.
Well, I see them as a mentoring organization for me, particularly in Papua New Guinea, and they've achieved a lot, but we also know that they have challenges, and in the Pacific we have specific issues that are specific to Pacific, and I think Fiji Women's Crisis Centre has been the leading agency to able to strengthen us to say, yes, we have specific issues, let's address it as a community of Pacific women.
It has been a new experience for us at the office and at the organization.
One role that they have definitely taken on is a mentoring role for both our management activities as well as our staff capacity building. And this is very important for the centre because we can become very isolated in Tonga, whereas that can be a very difficult situation because if the staff themselves don't know the issues themselves inside and out, how are they then able to help the clients who walk through our doors?
When we don't have resources, we just wait and we keep looking for other people to help us. We attend the regional training and then the regional meeting and all sorts of these trainings, it really helps us with, they build our capacity. In one way or the other, we get the message straight and then we go back home, we use it into our own ways.
The Crisis Centre's work as a regional mentor often strains the limited resources of the organization. But the urgent need for this role continues to increase, particularly in providing training and advocacy resources.
At this point in time, we don't have the capacity at the Crisis Centre to respond to all the requests. We have had to turn down some. And so the next step we are going to take is develop a group of trainers from around the Pacific.
The Crisis Centre's pivotal role in the region for championing women's human rights and advocating for the elimination of violence against women has attracted support from many donors and governments. As the centre moves from success to success, This support continues to flow in.
I guess we see the Fiji Women's Crisis Centre as having played a really key role over the years in raising the issue of violence against women, both in Fiji and across the region. And that's one of the reasons we've been happy to support them over this time, because of that key role and the mentoring role.
A relatively new area that the Crisis Centre has engaged in to help support its other services is research.
In terms of research, I think this is a key direction for the Crisis Centre. We try and look at community perceptions, what they think about women's human rights, that type of issue. It will inform a lot of the work that we are doing, like the different kind of programs that we are targeting, but also to get a sense of people's attitudes in terms of what levels of violence they tolerate or where the gaps are in terms of services.
A team of Crisis Centre researchers look at statistics, public surveys, media reports and legal decisions to gather data and prepare reports to help validate the Centre's calls for action on the issue of violence against women. Part of the research done by the Centre is in the area of legal research.
When I research into a particular case or particular cases, those cases are usually with the police or with the judiciary, or in other words, in court.
This client has experienced domestic violence in his marriage. 4 years of marriage now.
After researching into those particular cases, the results from that research or looking into that case is used to better support our clients, and it helps us in our ability to provide better advocacy for our clients. And we also use this as part of our human rights monitoring of the situation here in Fiji. In the meantime, also we can apply for custody.
It's not really just doing research for the sake of having a document, but more as an advocacy tool that we can use. But also I think it would be good in countries like Fiji to measure the levels of violence, after 5 years or 10 years, and to see how we are faring. I think that would be really important for our work.
As the front line between the legal system and the public, Fiji's police force has traditionally been a vital partner for the Crisis Centre.
Work with the police is very important for us. They are our major stakeholders because police are everywhere. Crisis centers are not everywhere. So it's really important to work with them, to sensitize them so they respond sensitively to survivors when they go and make a complaint.
Training and advocacy with Fiji's police officers began the same year the Crisis Centre was established.
We have a whole lot of women who are reporting domestic violence, and then when we look at the history goes back to abuse when they were children also. So there are many.
The centre saw the urgent need not only to sensitise police officers to women's vulnerability in violent homes, but to see the violence as a crime rather than an acceptable part of Fiji culture.
But they're from society, so they go into their jobs with the same mindset that other people have, that domestic violence is a private affair. Really important that they learn, they change their own attitudes and behavior so that they can respond better, and the perpetrators of such crimes are brought to justice. And we lobby senior officers, the commissioners of police and so on, to ensure that the police force responds well to violence against women, crimes of violence against women, and as well as the police force having a zero tolerance policy within the police force itself.
Without the dedication and commitment of its small team, the Crisis Centre would never have made its remarkable achievements.
The age range of our staff are between early 20s to mid to late 50s, and coming from all different backgrounds, but the common interest is the issue of violence against women and how we can work to eliminate it.
The centre staff often work long hours, travelling to remote communities and even into hostile situations to protect and advocate for the women they serve. This dedication requires a special type of person.
Particularly people want to make money, they want to get, keep advancing in their career and so on. So it takes a particular type of person to be here and to work with commitment. But we're trying very hard.
Community education workshops in different villages and communities.
The commitment and the passion that they have working for other women has been one of the greatest experiences that I've had as a male advocate.
The impact that the Fiji Women's Crisis Centre has had on Fiji society may be difficult to measure. Sustainable behavioural change does not happen overnight. As any organization must do, the Crisis Center now looks to the future, building on its successes while setting in place plans to address its new and evolving challenges.
There's a lot of awareness throughout the Pacific now. So how can we take that to the next level? I think that's what we need to be looking at in terms of and doing this within the information technology that is available to us.
As new challenges come up, and and then you also look at the successes the organization has had, the credibility we have built up, that actually inspires me more to continue this work. And I don't think the passion is ever going to lessen. I think it's just going to continue.